Welcome everyone. This is our first time ever we have recorded with a full body and everyone's faces. This is so exciting. So welcome to Know the Rules of the Game for Turn the Dial. I'm your host, Desiree Patno, CEO and President of Women in the Housing Real Estate Ecosystem, NARB, and Desiree Patno Enterprises, Inc., the real estate brokerage, advisor, investor for Amicus Brain, AI for Aging Population, and the Chief Strategic Officer for Zulu Time and publisher of NARB Magazine and the War Report. So excited to have you all join us today. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. So a little bit about NARB real quick. We are the SBA partner resources on women-owned small businesses, and we've all heard SBA has been all over the news for the last 2 months during this pandemic regarding the PPP and the EIDL loan. It's pretty crazy times that we're dealing with. So thank you all for taking a valuable day this morning on Wednesday during this podcast. So excited to have it. But today we are so honored to have our guest, Laura Dietz, CEO of Summit Realty Group, and Gay-Lynn Barnes, CEO of Barnes Real Estate Group, and Sandy Miller, CEO of Sandy Miller and Associates Real Estate Brokerage and Consulting Group. Notice how they're all C-suite CEOs? Yes, excited. Welcome. They are all the Seasoned Asset Management Group. Collectively, we have almost a full century. That's almost 100 years in real estate services. Yes. Our goal today is to highlight how you can turn the dial in an industry and still preserve the quality of life and the business opportunities. So number one rule I'd like to jump into, but before we do that, I want to give a moment to have each one of you say hi and tell us a fun fact about yourself and something that'll be relative to, really relate to Turn the Dial. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Gay-Lynn. You're up in the top left. Go for it.
Gosh. Hi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Desiree. Really appreciate this opportunity to be here with you guys, you ladies, I mean. So I think a fun fact for me, gosh, it's so many things that, you know, in trying to turn the dial and trying to be adaptive during this time is I think one thing that I do is just mindset and just learning how to live within my own home with my family, teenagers, and the husband and the dog. So adapting to that has been a little fun. Learning how to cook and being so close to the refrigerator here lately is just trying to manage the workload at the same time that I'm Zooming between meetings every other hour. So it's just been adapting to the new way of life. And I think it's been sort of a lot of fun learning to spend a lot of time with the kids, actually doing puzzles and things that I had not even in my wildest dreams think I would be doing again.
There you go. There you go. I love it. Sandy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me on here with you guys. And I've known all of you now for so many years, and each one of you has always been a great source of inspiration for me personally and in my business life. You know, I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary with my husband. And, you know, you kind of wonder, like, God, we can't believe we're still together. We've made all these years, but it's been actually very endearing having to be home with him every day. And, you know, there've been days where I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to like scream. But for the most part, I mean, I frankly have just gotten closer with my husband. And so I've tried to use this time to adjust my mindset that you need to make the best of your circumstances, because this too will pass, because we are all going to get back to work. It's never going to be the same. It's going to be different. But I think it's a good time for us to use this time to become grounded and to find out really who we are as people.
Very cool. Very nice. So Laura, you're up.
Well, thank you, everybody. Happy Wednesday morning. It's been really hard to turn the dial because all of a sudden you're at home, and that's a big adjustment. You're used to going out, meeting your clients in the restaurants and having meetings. I do a lot of charity work, do a lot of work with the military and seniors and stuff like that. And motion picture, I'm grounded at home. So the new Laura has a lock on her refrigerator and my TV. But I found the time that I thought, being in all the markets that I've lived through and experienced from everything as a broker and an auctioneer and military specialist, is the fact that this has really changed, and it changed fast. And how I can adapt to it. I mean, it's really hard. I want to run around the yard and do something different. I hate to be in the home. I'm always busy to be gone. How does everyone else feel that way? It's a hard time to adjust, but yet we have to. So I'm taking my time right now to become a better resource for my clients that really are needing some help right now, dealing with a lot of depression with a lot of clients. So we're finding, take the time to be better, to better yourself so you can help other people, because we've always been in this business, all of you, I've known you all forever, to service people and help people. And that's what we really need to do, because like you said, Sandy, life will never be the same. How can it?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Very cool. Very cool. Very good stuff. For myself, being too relatable to be a resource and to understand the visionary side of how things are going from long-term, short-term, and to really amplify what we're seeing coming down the pipe, whether it be personal or professional, and to handle the shell shock of we went to bed one night and woke up in a completely different environment. And I love to see beauty, and to be able to walk outside that next day and see nothing had changed, but to know that, if you had a fallout of a terrorist attack, or, a bomb went off, or a tsunami, or a natural disaster, you could physically see it. We can't see that change. And mentally, it's a hard adjustment, because to me, on how to deal with, nothing looks different, but that you're fighting an enemy that is something that you have to be very vigilant about being around and changing how you do that, like flying, right? To understand what you don't know behind the scenes. And that's where I think, as far as the fun fact is, how do you go and process and continue and be a resource, like every one of us has been, for the mental side of it. I think the negativity of using certain words we've had for PTSD and bipolar and depression and everything else, and using the old term of shell shock, a very old military term back in the 1900s, early 1913, has really been powerful. So thank you all for being on here. So one of the things I really wanted to dwell on, a reason for this turn the dial, a fun fact, I had asked Laura to actually get to follow up with what she's doing with her military and what's involved. And she tells me she knows the commander for US Iowa, and the US Iowa now becomes, a partner with USNS Mercy, which we've heard in the news. And all of a sudden we get an article, it gets put in the magazine. And I said, oh my gosh, it's fantastic. And then we go and say, what are you gonna do next? And she says, well, what are you doing? And so I told her, some of the issues. She says, well, Desiree, why don't we do that? Here we are on the call. This was only a couple weeks later. So thank you, Laura. So I wanted to give credit to credit's due. And because of that, turn the dial. We came up with 3 rules that we talked about how we're going to, as an industry, still preserve the quality of life, and also how to grow your business and or business opportunities. Because if we're not sustainable ourselves, how are we going to be able to do lessons learned and take all the experience we have of almost 100 years to convey that to the people that we need, from simple as getting food, not being homeless, and or dealing with health issues, besides just the avenue of dealing with real land, right, in any capacity. So rule number 1, leverage your resources and relationships to provide a smoother transition. So I want to start with you, Laura, and say, what does that mean to you? What kind of rule, how does that rule apply to your environment and where you've come and what you've done? I know you started in the movie industry. I know you've been involved in a lot of different capacities. So how is that relating to what's going on right now?
Well, it relates in so many different areas. It's the fact that you're really back to the way that I live, and that's caring for other people and calling and saying, how are you? How can I help you? Not just being that auctioneer broker that wants to list your house, but as the world changes, like especially you hit on a subject, motion picture industry, it's shut down. People are not going to be working and maybe till next year. How do I help them? How can I be that resource for service? How can I kind of guide them to making the right decisions whether they get a forbearance loan or how they're going to live if they're going to still live here. And so it's just getting up every day and thinking about, let me call that person. Can I help you in any way? What do you need? And what are you going through? Maybe you're living in a small apartment, two people are working to support that family, and you're running your businesses out together. It's very hard. And so a lot of our military, we have, like Desiree always says, I always talk military, but military, maybe that husband's deployed, but I'm not hearing any programs for the military wives and the children at home. How can we help them go outside, turn that dial? Our elderly, it's really a very important factor right now. And that's where I spend my time thinking how I can make it better. I've been in all the markets of REO and seen it and different changes. So, change is inevitable.
Well, I love the point. Couple things. If you think of Hollywood, what is Hollywood about? It's about putting you into their world, into their life, right? So you go into, like, Wendy Fetterman, we had on a call, and she did a article a couple of issues ago in the magazine about we transform your world when you walk through the Broadway to make you feel like you're part of that industry. So same with Hollywood. You go to the movies, you go to streaming, we're all watching now. So that capacity, when you're not able to escape and get into someone else's world for that moment, really impacts it. And just like the military, that military world can be very different, especially if you're deployed overseas. You're in a ship, confined to a ship for 6 months or dealing with it. And so you're dealing with, in essence, the experience of how that life is. And you want to make sure that you bring your expertise of dealing with so many different experiences from those experiences that the bigger picture plays in that space, right? Other than the normal walk, whether it be military, whether it be movie industries and things like that. So very powerful. And then obviously they transition into the aging population, which we can talk about later. Very cool. Sandy, you're next.
For me, the biggest thing that I've noticed is that, this sort of took me by surprise. If somebody had said to me a year ago, 6 months ago, that there's going to be a worldwide pandemic and we're all going to be forced to be shelter in place, we can't leave the house. If we leave the house, we have to wear a mask. There'll be lines to get into the grocery store. I would think it was probably a scene out of a horror movie or a thriller movie, something that, I don't think I would have even taken it serious. So when it hit me personally, I did experience shell shock initially, and I was very nervous for many, many, many days. And I finally had to sit down and say, wait a minute, this too will pass. And I had to get out of myself and start talking to other people. And I realized I have a ton of clients right now that are thinking of selling their house, have been thinking about refinancing their house, that are worried about losing their jobs, and how can I be a resource to them? And you kind of wonder, well, how can that be? Well, we actually can be. If you realize how many years we've been in this business, and before we got into this space, we had other careers as well. So all of us are a plethora of information. So I've spent the last 30 days in making a point of calling anybody and everybody I could possibly think of calling, including my sphere of influence, friends, family, anybody, to basically just check in, just see how you're doing. And I can't tell you how people have just appreciated the call. I'm calling just to see, hey, how are you? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you want me to go to the store for you? Do you need me to drop off some groceries? Which I have. I've dropped off groceries. I've gone to the store. I've dropped off masks. I mean, whatever anybody needs, it's like, we just have to be there for one another. And that has truly helped me in my mental clarity and my mental sanity. That has helped me, because otherwise I can't just leave the house, like I used to do it. So it has really helped me to get out of my head into helping others. And you'd be surprised how many people we all know, that we really, all it takes is a phone call. And that's easy. So that's how I've handled this situation that we're now in.
The part I love about that is how you made a comment about how you called everyone and how it helped you. Here you're thinking that I'm going to call you to help them, your clients, but how it helped you to mentally adjust that it was you needed something for yourself. And they always say that when you help others, it'll come back to you.
Yes.
And so you're now in a position to say that, you know, have you voiced that before? Have you aired that you're doing me a service by allowing me to help you? Because you're allowing me to be active, still feel like I'm doing something in my profession, and at the same time still giving back. And that's one of the reasons that NRB has a platform that we allow and we encourage all during this entire time, that if you own a nonprofit or you know someone who's a nonprofit, every email that we send out every Friday, you get a free banner ad for all nonprofits to go out to 450,000 people. Doesn't matter how big, how small. And the reason is we want to help those who are helping others in their nonprofit world. And it doesn't matter if you're one independent or a huge one, because the idea is that, and it can be helping a pet, it can be helping a food bank, it can be helping anything. And the purpose is that we can connect. Is if we can preserve and help you adjust, then we've done a service to you. And that's how we're leveraging what we're doing. So thank you, Sandy. That's great. You help someone else because you're like, I had no idea. It's a give back. So Gay-Lynn, your turn.
I'm muting myself there. Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I think that when you hit it right on the head about relationships and leveraging, you know, your other partners in your industry, I think that's so huge. And it's so important. And that's, again, another reason why I've been able to kind of get through what we're all going through here as we're going through this COVID-19 and trying to adapt. But it's just leveraging our relationships in the sense that we're reaching out to our partners that we work with on a daily basis. So first thing I did was just calling. I mean, I work in the commercial field, so I'm constantly in touch with tenants and landlords. And what is the thing that they need right now? And the support was figuring out how to get applied to those PPP programs and the EIDL programs, government assistance, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a madness. We were just so busy with just trying to stay on top of every single type of requirement that was changing on a daily basis. I was attending meetings every day on the hour, just trying to keep up with all those changes, with the funds not being available, with the funds becoming available, with the funds running out, with, you know, and just applying and helping them go through that process. So I was just calling tenants, calling landlords as well, trying to help with, you know, building the relationships, maintaining relationships as well. I mean, I don't get paid for this. I mean, it's just mainly just to connect with them and see how are they doing. What can we do to help relations right now? How can we build the communication and the bridge of can maybe establish new payment plans? Do we maybe try to figure out terms here for the future? I know we're just a month in now, almost going on to 2 months now on this, but now's the time to make sure that those terms are reevaluated so that are you, Mr. Tenant, business owner at a crossroads, whether you're thinking you're gonna have to shut down permanently, or maybe are you at a point where you want to restructure something to maybe evolve in a different way as a restaurant opening a pop-up market. You know, many of these restaurants have gotten really clever. Maybe they're now making masks. Maybe they're doing other things differently in order to adapt to the change. And so that's what I've been busy with in trying to work with tenants, business owners, landlords, trying to survive through this crisis in a sense.
Excellent. So one of the things to let everyone know, we're really discussing, and we're all based here in California. We have Sandy down in San Diego, all the way to Laura, all the way up to northern LA. And we're all in different areas. So we have different, what do I want to call, an environment that's really tying into how we got where we are today, right? And some of the things that's so powerful is that what I'm hearing is the rules and regulations in here in California are being adjusted very heavily, and it really brings us into the next rule, which is understand the constant change of regulations or suggested practices by the government, public, and or industries for clarity. And so we heard Sandy talk about how like the rules were being updated every day. We just had a report that came out over the weekend that talked about that people are getting loans, whether it's from the business end of, you know, people who are publicly traded companies, that the size standards for the SBA, PPL, it was a little PPP, and the EIDL loan was a little marketed a little bit strangely. It talked about that you had to be a small business. It was only based on the size of the number of employees of 500. And it was not based on the fact is that the NACE codes that are associated with have to do with your dollar amount. That was not in consideration at all. And then if you're in the restaurant or hospitality, which is your hotels, you could have unlimited employees, endless. So when you heard, you know, the big companies getting it, big franchise chains getting, you know, $10 million per location, like a REIT or a publicly traded company that was $1 billion, or a company that, you know, Berkshire Hathaway, believe it or not, has 37 employees. As a corporation, not as all the franchise they own.
Right.
So it applied to anyone really pretty much to get a loan. If they were structured the way their business entity was structured, they could get this loan.
Absolutely.
So marketing is everything. And that's what we're here to talk about, one of the things too. So how do you understand that content change? You know, the negativity that has surrounded it now and the positive stories that have surrounded it. You've got people who are being able to be employed and continue their book of business. But then you have people who are fearful of getting that business loan, the forgiveness loan, because they're fearful of, how do I actually spend the money in 8 weeks? And can I get it free? And am I going to have a liability go with it? Or am I too fair to even do it and give it back, right? So to know the rules, to understand the rules is what you're talking about, Gay-Lynn. I think the powerful is the constant change is, I love the idea to where you've marketed to where you've made yourself a resource to not start a whole new contract or to move someone in and out of a property, buy or sell a property, but to really renegotiate what you have. For those who don't understand, here in the state of California, we have a lot of great laws that came out on the benefit of the tenant, but did not come out of the benefit on the small mom and pop business owners that have investment property. So I, who own, mom and pop store, and I own property, if their tenants aren't paying, they legally don't have to pay. Now, they are responsible for the payments, not forgiveness, but it's forbearance to later. But I still am owed my mortgage. Now, on top of that, you still have the servicing side that they're still owed to pay the investor the money. So you've got a lot of layers. So the idea is, what's the advantage of owning that property, keeping that property? So that being said, I want to start with you, Sandy. Start with you, Gay-Lynn. And that transition, you talked about it being on a regular basis. And you have the government, you have the city, county, state, and federal government. You have the public side, the perception of the consumer. And you also have the other industries that relate to whether CAR allowed us here in California or NAR that practice in real estate was illegal, because the fact is that it was a non-essential business. We had to shut it down for a couple months or a couple weeks at least, I know of, that we could not do anything with it, because the fact is that we couldn't sell a house, we couldn't market it, we had to it was non-essential business, it was sheltered at home. So to answer that, so my question to you under the rule number 2, you came up with a platform that I'd like you to establish a little bit more about how you're doing. We talked about this, that you know how to stop negotiating contracts when you have to refer it out to someone else who's an expert. Talk to us a little about that.
All right, thank you, Desiree. Yeah, so I had to get creative here a little bit with the circumstances and what we're going through. So in trying to, again, be of service, as you said, I come from a place of service and a place to be a resource right now to people who need it. They're not looking about trying to sell or trying to buy. I know that's the last thing on their minds, and with us, with our economic, climate right now at this point, it's at a stall. It's just, they can't do anything either way. Although lenders are lending out there, but it's become very strict. But it's important for them to realize that they have a resource, that I could be of a resource there to them. And so as a consulting fee, I'm able to review their leases, for example, at no cost. I won't charge. But now if it takes another level of whether it needs to be evaluated and they do want to negotiate terms, then I will try to see if the landlord will work with me. And for a small percentage, sometimes it run as small as a small fee of $500 on up to maybe $1,500, who knows, depending on the length of involvement. But then again, working with my partners, whether it's a real estate attorney, insurance agent, so forth, I then can take it to another direction if it continues on to, or it escalates to a point where I cannot be involved. But we try to negotiate first. We try to, the easy way first. Let's
Right.
make some good, build on the relationship between landlord and tenant. Let's work this together. Let's avoid any extra cost and fees, and let's work that in that direction, and then avoid the eviction, type of paralegals or attorneys and so forth at that point.
Which runs into Sandy, but I'd like to say a statement about that. Thank you, Gay-Lynn, is that you're building a conversation to where you can present the tenant's point of view, the landlord's point of view, the risk involved. And I know we talked a little bit about how you found out things that you thought were assumed based on the relationship that were not solved, like whether proper insurance or this or that. That was very interesting, right, as you went through. So seeing that the structure, they had certain things in. So it's so powerful that the good is that, yeah, it hit hard and we flipped the switch now, but now you're getting into a parameter to where you can help future, right? You can help lay a better foundation.
Right, correct. And making sure, like I think you touched on from insurance, or even making sure that these businesses are under certain entity names. There's some that are just exposed through liability. And so we're discovering through education, making sure they've gone through some of the basic steps to ensure that as a business, if their mom and pops, have they really evaluated and looked at their business structure? Now is a time to do that. I think it's making all of us really reevaluate all of our structures very closely to ensure that we are completely covered and we have done things the right way. Sometimes in the past we've said we have no time, we just have no time to get things done, and now we do.
Guilty as charged. No, it's very, very cool, and I think it's very. So it brings us into Sandy, being a paralegal. You've been in that space for a long, long time. And thank you for that. And, you talked about getting out of that space as being a paralegal to come into being a real estate and owning your own company. How does that bring in now applicable to the transition we're talking about, understand the constant change for regulations and your paralegal background?
I'm thinking, just going off exactly what Gay-Lynn has been talking about. You know how in real estate we say location, location, location? I say read, read, read. Read before you sign. During this time, as business owners, we've had the opportunity, or not having the opportunity, to apply for financial assistance, for loans, what have you. And I think a lot of people maybe weren't fully prepared for that, because in order to apply for those loans, you do have to have an entity, you do have to have, a corporation or LLC in structure, and you usually also have to have a profit and loss statement. So that's all about us setting up a business. As business owners, we understand that. But it's also about understanding if you're given the opportunity to have a forbearance. I've had several clients that have contacted me where they've considered forbearance. Forbearance, I think, thank God you have that option if that's the path you have to take. I went through the Great Recession, and that was definitely very enlightening for me. And I can tell you that it's imperative that you understand what you're signing and that you read the fine print. If forbearance is the way you have to go because you cannot make that mortgage payment, then by all means, go for it. But I would highly advise that you do consult with a loan officer before you sign that contract. Because you have to understand, what are your plans for in the next 6 months or a year from now? Do you have a plan? Well, you should have a plan, because when that forbearance is over, you're not going to be able to refinance it. You're going to be asked to make a heavy balloon payment. Can you do that? If you can't do it, what are your plans for the future? I think you do have to have some sort of plan, because otherwise, it reminds me of what happened to so many people around 2009, where so many people were just frozen in time. They were frozen. They were afraid to make the phone call, afraid to go to the mailbox, afraid to reach out for help. And I think I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but I will talk about it. It's something that you have to be very, very aware of. You have to be aware that if you agree to do the forbearance, that you're not going to be able to refinance. Yes, it will affect your credit. The reason why it's going to affect your credit is because when you go to apply for a loan, they're going to see, oh, you didn't make payments during those 3 months, 6 months, or a year. So, it's going to affect it somehow. Maybe not in the way you think it will, but I think it will be. So you just have to be aware of all of that. Being very, detail oriented. I just think it's important that you read everything, ask the questions, ask what if, think what if is going to happen, have a plan of action. And if you have to go down that route, that's fine. I think it's just a matter of being aware of what you have to do. Be aware of all your options. And if you can make your payment, by all means, make the payment. This forbearance is for people that have been affected by COVID-19. They've lost their job, they've gotten sick, other circumstances all related to this pandemic. And it's there to help certain people, but it's not for everybody. And I don't think you should try and take advantage of something. If you look at your own circumstances and you realize you can make the payment, I think you need to make the payment. I really do.
So thank you. You brought something up that I really want to highlight real quickly, and that is the fear. We all went through the financial meltdown back in 2008 and 2009, and happened to be in the capital of Irvine, where we started it with New Century, and we go down the list, but that's okay. The same fear that we had in 2008 and 2009, I believe, is today, but the fear is of health. So if you think about the fear of adjustment of, do I go outside? Do I get engaged? Do I touch? Do we look at our mail? Do we order out? Did that person touch it? Do we go to our office? So the fear is a different kind of fear. And not everyone is associated with that fears, just like 2008, 2009, meaning that you're not going to find me. If I run and hide, it's not going to get to me. And I'm not going to engage with someone to understand the parameters that gets done. That same fear, I believe, is associated with this pandemic, but it's just a different type and a different way we deal with it. So if you think about turn the dial, it's really relative to the fact that we're not, we've got to adapt as professionals, but then also our personal life has to be adaptable to accept that the fear of talking to someone else's pain, understanding their consequences, and to be able to do that, to be that listening ear, right? To refine and get it back, and then take action. And then action can be something that we help them now versus then we get reciprocated from it in the long term. So thank you for that. I think that was very exceptional, powerful. Laura, so understand the constant change of regulations and the practices. You're very heavily involved in the military side, but the difference in the industries now, from the motion picture side being more in the Pasadena, North Hollywood area, how has that affected to the mental state when you're dealing with your real estate, and how the capacity of them, transitioning, because this is very heavy for them being in the limelight, and they're not in the limelight anymore?
Well, majority of them are very depressed and they don't know which way to go. And it's like a domino effect, being so involved in Los Angeles County, Kern, and Ventura, where I serve all the areas. The market we had in 2008 so different than what we have now, because we had overbuilt in 2008. We're significantly underbuilt now. Most people have equity in their home. And there's a different mindset. Like for a lot of people in the motion picture, they've gone to their credit unions and they're asking for loans, and they're going to their banking institutions where they bank forever. And they're being told, well, you need a higher FICO score and we need you to justify your income. Well, how do you do that? And like for someone in motion picture, unless you're vested like my late husband was, you have to work so many hours to be able to get insurance. If not, you have to pay for that. So besides you're not working, and from all the talks that I'm hearing with the studios, they're not going back till the first of the year. And that's going to be catastrophic for a lot of people. Well, if you have like office buildings, like you have Disney has in the Yahoo building, only their animation people are working, and they're working for home. What does that do to the landlord? Where do you go? You don't have a lot of options, to go, how long is this lockdown really going to last? It'll never be the same. So a lot of small businesses will never go back and hire their employees. And a lot of people are finding, like in production, I know so many different production companies. Why have an office building? And I've done commercial for 20 some years. When you can operate out of a home or a place and go on your locations, you cut your expenses. But, you mentioned Gay-Lynn and Sandy, a good point. I get so many calls about, Laura, help me understand the forbearance. Well, the people that designed it don't understand it. But here's the one key that I told them. I remember I lived and I worked really hard in the short sale industry and the REO, totally. But forbearance is not permanent. And you have to be careful, like Sandy said, what are you signing? Because a lot of them are not, they're saying, great, I'm not going to pay for 6 months and they're going to reevaluate it. Okay, what if you compound your insurance and your taxes? It's not going to get paid. Your house burns. You have nothing. So, read what you say. We offer consulting, totally, from auctioneering to certified military specialist, residential, commercial. But if I don't know it, I have a whole team that deals with people and deals with the legality of it. And how do you go? How do you tell someone whose motion picture makes tremendous amount of money? And our way we are in California, really, the basis of our industry and how we live is motion picture driven. If you think about a movie where no one's kissing, please, you can't even shake anyone's hands in normal days. They're very depressed and they don't know which way to go. So I don't know how that's going to change. And now they're requiring higher FICO scores and higher credit. Where do you get that if you don't have any money coming in, Desiree?
Yeah. Well, the access to capital, obviously. So if you think about it from the entertainment side, you look at the Broadway. We talked about a little bit before the podcast. New York. All those artists are not working, and they're now doing streaming. Doing some fun stuff, doing Zoom calls, doing whatever digital stuff. But the idea is that how do you have a play when you're not kissing, hugging, intimate, whatever, every night, and you're supposed to bring them into your world and their world? And so the statistics I heard just a week and a half ago from Wendy Fetterman were unbelievable. $14 billion is generated in New York City off of the Broadway plays. That doesn't include all the touring companies that go around the entire United States that are based off the plays that are in New York. So all the touring companies that are affected by it, plus all the venues and all the different things that get done, and all the screenwriters and the coffee shops and everything that support downtown New York. So if you don't think it affects the arts, whether it's movie theaters, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's Disney, whether it's Broadway, your escapism of seeing the movies. I mean, just today before the call, they're streaming the Olympics back in hockey. You don't have sports, right? What are you doing? How that's going to be as a season ticket holder for the Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, right? Tells you how old I am. It's huge. So I think the most important thing about Turn the Dial is understand the clarity is that none of us are experts in everything. None of us know anything that's breaking at any given time, because even the people who just does one job, and that's what's so powerful to understand, is the local listed trusted broker, whether that's a real estate broker or any kind of industry, you have to be someone who you care about your client, who you have a relationship with that client, and that if you can't answer that question, you're going to network into a system, and you're going to have relationships of people that you can pull on, because if they say it's good, you're going to rely on that person to give a valued referral. And I'm not talking about disposition acquisition of real estate, but back in my day when I did relocation for Fortune 100 companies back in the early 90s, I dealt with them on how to deal. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have phones, cell phones. We didn't have a Thomas guide. You know, we had to know, how do we transfer that employee out there with the entire family? Where do we take them for doctors? How do we deal with daycare? How do we deal with the school system? And all of it was in paper files. You didn't have any way to track it, Google it in a computer. So that being said, you had to memorize everything. And now we're going back to that schooling, even though we have technology and everything in our hands, our fingertips, but what's online and what reality is in a person is very different. How you smell, the ambience you bring is limited by your digital connection now. You can't see what I'm wearing below my shirt. I can't see what you're wearing. I can't tell how you smell. I can't see how long your hair is unless you go, right? Those are powerful things, because I like to be color coordinated, and you can't tell me I have all my bells and whistles and all my fun stuff, because all my clothes of Hollywood is what? Packed away in a closet. What makes Hollywood or makes an artist is their ability to be different. And yet you just see this much of them. So that's,
Desiree, that brings me to another point that we talked about earlier, and all of you will agree. You know, Hollywood is a big industry that we have. But what about, and I always say, our military, because they serve that we live free. What about the husband that's deployed, and all of a sudden you have a mother at home homeschooling her children, can't go out, she's locked in at home. Who's helping them? I'm not seeing one program, shame on all of us, that is really helping our military families. And I know you're a great advocate of that. I hope we can see that, because you know what? They're the forgotten people, and we need to remember them every day.
Absolutely, and we are definitely on that, as you know, here at NRB with our NDLC Council and the stuff we're working on for the resource partners. So you will see action on that. Trust me. One of the things about Turn the Dial that we won't go into this podcast is about procuring contracts. How to get into sole source contracting, where the contract's written just for you. How to really leverage the information. So one of the things that we really want to put out in this Turn This Dial platform for the delegate spokeswoman is to really leverage a ideology of change. How do you incorporate to keep your mental strength, but also how to leverage the informational guidebook. Simple picking up the phone call. And this is where we come in as a generation. We're the #1 generation to pick up a phone and call.
Yeah.
True.
So the fact that we pick up a phone and call people versus then texting and email is going to keep, at least you get that third voice, the actual audio side, that you can hear me and see me and hear the adulation, that it's not a monotone voice. Because misinterpretation, how many times have you text someone or emailed someone and they, oh, you did what to me? And it completely went off calendar because you were doing something else and you're thinking about it and it didn't come out the way you wanted, right?
True.
So, anyway, so it leads us to our last one. Thank you for that, Laura. Rule number 3, be comfortable to be uncomfortable. This is a phrase just like unconscious bias. To adapt to change, embrace change. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Sandy. You made the comment about you were having an issue about adjusting. I think we all had an issue adjusting. I think either you were in a denial of the adjustment required, or it mentally just took a toll on you. And I know that every one of us, I don't care where you are on the face of this earth, you're being challenged, whether it's in a food criteria of how the food's getting to you, whether you were relying on nature to help you to live if you're living in, you know, a very remote village, how the environment is changing, how the ecology of the earth is changing, to how you're going to get your next meal if you're living in an urban area and you've lost your resources, right? So the fallout from a shell shock to long-term effects is going to be really prolific. So I believe that, like 9/11, you know, here's a woman that I refused to fly. I said, not happening. I'm not getting on an airplane. I don't care. You know, right down the street from me, I have some people that lost both parents. So I feel that from moving forward, that I said, okay, it's safer to fly than it is to just drive a car. How many more people die in an airplane than a car? The statistics are extreme. Okay, so Desiree, it's okay to get on an airplane. Now, until the pandemic hit, I was on an airplane every single week, and I'd literally go on a meeting to go, literally fly in an airplane to go to the event and then come back, and never go outside and actually have dinner outside or meet clients outside, because everyone met me at the event. And that was my way of transporting, to get in a car and drive to LA versus then going on an airplane. I mean, that was ridiculous. And so I made a pact in 2019 that I would not travel unless I made a point to go outside of where I was going to go visit someone or do something, or go do something for me. So I could visit, you know, have a commercial, have a endearing dinner, let's call it. Because I said, no, my time commitment, you got to come to me to have all the meetings. So moving forward, to make it embrace that change, if we adapt to wearing a face mask, because in San Diego it's $1,000 fine to walk out here in Orange County. In Irvine, you have to wear one. But we could sit there and say, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to be there. If we're protecting not only ourselves, but we're protecting someone else, and they're not wearing it to reflect, then we all know if we start up a paddle, we come back, we have to go up and we come back, because we're not all practicing the same, not going to call it social distancing, but beliefs and standards in what we're doing, right? Then we're going to cause a disruption. And as a D&I person dealing with diversity, inclusion, and equality, with a gender lens and any lens, economic, it doesn't matter. You think about from the poverty of homelessness to the family office space of 100 million above, how are we going to adjust? And the thing is that you've got to be comfortable to be uncomfortable, to say, I've never done it before. And don't ever say, I've never done it before. It's just, you know what? This is new to me. Let me figure out how I can get this to work in my product, and we can do that. And you got to embrace the change. And I believe, you know, one of the things that's so powerful for me is I'm not going to be, we're not going to make colds, strep throats, you know, health issues. That's going to allow us to think better. So let's start with Sandy. You're going to be first on this one. How are you embracing change that's going to be able to help you how to accept to be uncomfortable in your change?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I told you initially. I was in shell shock when this first happened. And I remember sitting on the couch, and it was my husband and daughter that came in and looked at me, and they could tell that there was like something wrong. I was just sort of like in shock over the whole thing. And I remember, I think I didn't eat for a couple of days because I really was so stressed out about the whole thing. And then as obviously, as I started to realize, wait a minute, it's not just about me, it's about the whole world. And I need to reach out to my sphere of influence, my family, my friends. It's not just about me, it's about everybody. And I think the other reason why I was so nervous too is because I also have asthma. And so I kept hearing about, okay, people that have asthma, maybe they're more prone to get sick, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like anything. I guess with asthma, you're more prone to get anything. That's just life. So, you know, I just sort of realized, well, this could be a good thing. You know, I mean, were we all that dirty before that we were like sneezing and coughing and spitting and on our hands and then touching doorknobs and pushing shopping carts and touching food in a market? Were we all that dirty? I mean, my gosh, you start to think about it, then it could just really freak you out. Well, I'm thinking with the change, I am also thinking, you know, what choice do we have, frankly, because we have to take care of ourselves. If it means having to wear a mask when I leave the house, then so be it. You know, I've ordered some stylish masks. Okay, wow, so maybe I won't get a cold this year. So that's a good thing, right? And maybe I won't spread my germs in the supermarket. That's another good thing. So if by me taking care of myself, I'm taking care of the people around me, and we all are feeling better because we're healthier, then that's a good thing. You know, it's no longer is it the mindset that I had so many years that I always went to work. It didn't matter if I was sick. I mean, I had to basically bedridden, having to go to the hospital to maybe not go to work. Well, that's an antiquated mindset. That's like craziness. Like, no, you're not going to go to work. If you're sick and you go to work, you're being selfish. You're exposing everybody in your circle to whatever it is that you have. So you're just being selfish. So now it's a mindset of, yeah, I've got to not just think about myself. I got to think about the well-being of people around me, my family, my friends, my in the supermarket, my community. It's about taking care of everybody, come together as a whole to basically develop best practices for our well-being. Maybe it's into best practice, not only for ourselves as human beings, but best practices in taking care of our environment, taking care of our planet. It's all about changing our mindset. It's not just about us as human beings. It's about taking care of our environment and our planet. And I think it's come down to this, that, look, guys, this is a reality. What did it take for you guys to finally wake up? So that's how I'm taking it. Everybody's taking it differently, but I personally, this is the way I'm handling it. And I think it's really working for me. And this is the same discussion that I have with people every time I pick up the phone and I call them up and say, you know, hey, Sally, how are you doing? You know, everybody starts the discussion about their well-being and mental well-being, not only physical, but leads into mental well-being. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why now when people are calling me up, they say, hey, Sally, you sound happy. I go, well, I sort of had to change my mindset. And that's exactly. The way I've done it.
Well, you know, I love the fact is that, you know, we really have to wake up and look at the advantages and not wake up, but welcome the advantages to it, because I don't know if you saw, but you know, as a fashion connoisseur, the idea of wearing, because I have very fair skin, and so I'm always wearing a hat when I'm outside. So to me, I now get to wear, they have these hats where they have the plastic shield, and, and I can put bling all over it, and I can then put a face mask on. It has, you know, I can have color coordinated to go with my outfit. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I started, and I saw it in the magazine, and I went, oh, cool, this is cool. You know, you're thinking, all right, so how are you going to breathe in this? You got to make sure you get too hot. My husband's going, you're going to be overheated. And I said, no, you just put a little hole in the top of the head. So as long as so as long as you have air to the thing,
right.
And he goes, because I hate wind. So, you know, there's, and you know, because I don't know if you know, but if you're ever outside and you're going to get a cold, your ears are the number one thing that you have to keep the air out. So I got this. So, I mean, to your point, right? I look at it a way to be marketing. I'm looking to look at how I can be color coordinated with a few more assets. So, you know, it's not all happiness, but it's, you know, embrace. So, Gay-Lynn, how are you dealing with being uncomfortable to be comfortable with the uncomfortable adaptation of change, embrace?
All right. So I think biggest factor for me has been my faith. So I think something sometimes we don't talk about is it's something that the faith has really been that pushes me through and keeps me grounded. And I'm a big Tim Story follower. You know, if you guys have watched that Great Glory Harvest Crusade out there, but I think we've all been going through that state of shock. Then it's denial. Then it's that adapting, and then we got to be thriving. So I think that as I listen to these guys, I'm writing out my plans. I think I write out what are my fears. You know, I heard something about write out your 3 fears. So what is the plan to address those three fears? So I think if you write it out, you're confirming, you're validating it, you're giving it that, don't give it that power. Once you write it out, you understand what's going on, then what's your plan to address it? And I think that that's one way that I've been trying to work through this and cope with that, because I love what Tim's story says. You know, a door has closed to open the door. And I think of it like, this is a great opportunity, you guys. I mean, I go back to 2008 when I was doing short sales and all of that too with Laura. I mean, we were all like in this state of shock. And I vowed that from that moment, that back then, I'm not going to go through what we went through back then. This time, this crisis was not done or is not created by the real estate market. It was created by something completely out of our control. But I think that we have to see the opportunity and the possibility of doing something, you know, finding something great out of this, whether we're going to evolve, maybe we're going to create a new business out of this, maybe we're going to do something amazing out of this. So I'm expecting great things to happen. And that's my perspective. I'm looking at it like a great opportunity for many of us to come through and really make some great changes for our society.
Excellent. No, I totally agree. You know, and we're all talking about, you know, we all met and had been in the business back in the day. I remember walking through Marina Valley and having 10 houses on one street, and that were my listing. And I had one of the asset directors come out, and she was walking through, and instead of walking through the front of the homes, we literally walked through the backyards from house to house to house. And I said, this looks like a war zone, because the fences were blown down. This is a tract home development. And not only were the majority of the fences blown over or broken, the personal belongings were left out in the yards and the homes, and windows were busted out. And you're just like going, people were just living here a month ago. And yet the disarray was unbelievable. You know, between the people, you know, breaking in, entering, leaving, and robbing, and everything else that went down back in those days when we had hundreds and hundreds of assets. But that change is what you're talking about, is that environment to when you apply to the war zone, and you apply to, you talked about the how we're dealing with, you know, write down your three fears. I equate that, and that's a great analogy. I equate that to, they say, if you know what the problem, 50% of the equation is knowing what the problem is, so you can resolve the problem. If you think about people who go to AA, you know, oh my gosh, you know, alcohol is flying off the shelf right now. You know, comfort food is flying off the shelf. The joke is that every one of us is going to gain 15 pounds as a minimum. 43% of the United States is already obese. 43% of the entire United States is already obese. So if we're all going to gain a minimum of 15 pounds after this is all said and done, you know, and to go through that, my kids are like going, Mom, I need a workout gym. And I'm like, okay, all the workout gyms are sold. You can't buy a workout gym because all the gyms are closed anywhere in the United States. They can't even order one. And so, and you're thinking about it, and I'm like going, wow, this is crazy how to think of all this. But then if you play it into the fact that if you understand your fears and you understand the reason why you're having difficulties, you can overcome those difficulties to go with it. So whether it's faith-based, whether it's my father's an altar boy, was so, you know, very into the thing, and my mother wasn't, and he says, hey, I'll go on Saturday, you come and you sing with me. So my mother would go to church to sing with her every night, because she was like, had a full run at a Catholic church in Satakoy. Father, the ordained was Father Biederman, became a cardinal. I mean, they had a full rock group. Why wouldn't you go, right? And so my dad and mom had a perfect relationship because of that. But that idea is believing that you can cure and take care of the positivity by understanding what those issues are. Then you can relate to it. So I love that. Thank you very much for that, Gay-Lynn. So Laura, how is it that you being, you know, you've been, you travel in a lot of different areas. If you think about Kern County, Ventura County, where I was born and raised, to Hollywood, very different, diverse neighborhoods that you traverse through. How is it being uncomfortable? Because not all shoes fit the same person, right? All the sizes are very different. The environment, the emotional stability of the very high to the very low. how are you adapting to be uncomfortable with your comfortability?
Well, I learned something about all of you today. I also have asthma, respiratory. When I used to enter a plane,
Wow.
I look like hazmat going in. I know I wouldn't do any jokes. But what I've noticed in every area that I go to, from Kern to Ventura County, Los Angeles, wherever my clients need me or need me to go, I'll go. I'm seeing families having dinner together. And that's huge. Everyone was so busy. You know, if you're a two-party family, everyone's working. There actually is a lot of family time. They're doing things together. They're doing puzzles and things like that. They're adapting to that. People that, like all of us who really support the environment, they're seeing such a healthy, positive change. So I embrace that because I think that is good. All of a sudden we notice, how are the seniors doing? Maybe there's been a little open hole with the reverse mortgages and a lot of caretakers taking advantage of them. We're seeing that, we're addressing that. We're seeing different needs, different place. The farmer having too much food. They always ask, Laura, what do we do? How do we go? Where do you go with that? Small woman-owned business, how do you succeed? How a single mother supports her family. Different changes, but I'm really seeing such positive change. Everybody wants to, you know, let's face it, no one likes to be told you have to stay home. And I'm like Desiree, I got to have bling. So I'm thinking about my mask. Although you can get a hat with the air conditioner thing in it. I have one. But the thing of it is, okay, we're in a situation that maybe some good will come out of it. Maybe we will live better for generations to come. We will have a different financial structure. We will have a different way of living. Faith, I'm seeing so many families I'm hearing about. Laura, we'd love to talk to you, but call me after 11:30 because we're all together on church. We're watching it on TV from home. How nice is that? Because before everybody opened the door on Saturday, they were out shopping, whatever. I mean, how many of us professional shopper, Desiree, you're not shopping anymore, right? You're doing other things.
No.
You may be shopping in your head, but I mean, all the stores are closed. But, you know, we've laughed. How many of us, like I said, I'm going to put a lock on my refrigerator. We're either going to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Weight Watchers. I don't know where we're going to go. But, you know, we're cooking. How many times, okay, all the restaurants basically are closed. Now they've opened up. How many of us, even though we're full-time business women, we run our own companies, we're cooking at home, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everybody's home. Everybody wants to eat. We're not having cleaning service. We're doing laundry. We're cleaning the house. We're doing many things. Is that bad? You know what? I think it brings us right down to the basis of who we need to be and who we need to be as a nation. We need to really be grounded with family and home and faith. And that's where I'm seeing it. Now, next time I go on a plane, they thought my office will laugh that's listening to this. They thought it was hazmat before. You wait till you see the new Laura aboard that plane.
You know, I think it's cute. No, I agree. You know, I don't know if you saw where, you know, Heidi Klum got sick on the America's Got Talent. And so Howie refused to leave his trailer until a full hazmat suit was brought out. This is 2 months ago. You know, here we are, almost 2 months to the day. You know, it was March 13th that Trump shut down the entire United States. And I just really believe, I mean, you talked about a couple different things I want to talk about. The food, you know, there was several thousand gallons per farmer of milk being flushed down the toilet or drain. And they're now sending billions of dollars worth of food. The USDA, Michelle Cordone, if you remember, from our conferences, they're allocated $3 billion to $4 billion worth of funds to go directly from the growers, distributors directly to the food banks, because the food used to come from the growers to the restaurants, and restaurants would then take it to the food banks. So because they lost the middleman, they're literally transferring that over right now, number one. Number two, they had hundreds of thousands of pigs and animals that they were slaughtering because they were supposed to be, that was their time to move on to the next round, and they were not doing anything with them. So it's going to took a couple weeks, but it's supposed to be implemented, I believe, this week. regarding that USDA plan to get it directly to the food banks because of the lines that they have are miles and miles long. The other thing you touched base about the availability of communities and talking to each other and helping each other in the aging population. That in itself is a very different dynamic on, they're finding out ways to see people in a hospital where they wouldn't have seen them in a nursing home or assisted living, that they're going to the glass portion of the hospital to see each other through the windows, where basically, unfortunately, there was a period for decades that you literally put someone who's aged out, we'll call it, into a nursing home and people would never visit them again. So now, because it's a highlight, there's different parameters that are being done. The other thing that I want to close out on regarding being uncomfortable, adapt to change. If you're in technology, this is a time that you can make a truckload of transitional stuff. Prop tech and real estate went from 200 million to $12 billion in 2018 in 10 years. So when we're talking about real estate, what is that going to be like? Imagine that prop tech could be something about what do I need to order, automatically order to someone deliver the food in case we still have COVID or any germ and we don't get out, we don't, remove it. Remember, HIV still has no vaccine.
It's true.
We're still living with it. So there might never be a vaccine for COVID. This might be a norm that you must wear a mask as you walk outside and you must wash and be, protected. The other thing is that security. Right now, security is being hit up big time from cybersecurity from all the universities and the labs, because whoever gets the vaccine or antibodies or a way of helping people to adjust, $1 trillion business. Because the fact is that everyone in the world wants it, and whoever gets it could be a dominance of global effect because they now have an economy that can open up and transpire. So between that and the security, cybersecurity into banking institutions, because how many of you applied for an EIDL loan or a PP loan or a unemployment check and just freely gave away all your information for all your banking, all your social security and all your information that's now just floating?
It's true.
So that being said, we're going to have opportunities to embrace, but we're also going to have opportunities that we have to realize that we're all talking about the positivity of home sheltering, how great meals, getting along together, anything else. But as Gay-Lynn introduced and says, well, there's some fun for the most part. There are times where we're just ready to be at each other's throats because we are not traveling. We are not out in the world being who we are and what we are. And we didn't buy our home to be home in those four walls and be permanently in those four walls. Otherwise we'd all be living in Oklahoma or Missouri or Texas or somewhere and living on a 40-acre ranch and having our freedom, versus them living in a complete, cracker box, because that's what it costs to live in, your high density areas. So that being said, I really appreciate that embracement change. So one of the things that I'd like to go over real quickly, because we're a little long, but that's good. Turn the dial. Turn the dial really means, how are we leveraging each other? How are we leveraging industries? How are we leveraging thought processes? Like Laura, you say you realize that every one of us had asthma, that we have grown it, case in point. I was born with asthma. I wasn't supposed to live past 5. And here I am with 4 kids. And I'm a 60-year-old woman. At the same time, what are we doing to help improve and therapeutically adjust and help? But being dressed up, being on a call, and bringing us back to where we would have waited to go to another conference, like ours is scheduled in September. Why not do it now? Why not be proactive and help share? Because something I learned from every one of you today, I'm going to be able to take that and practice it tomorrow and today, right? So the tip of the day. We didn't come up with a full tip of the day before we got on the call, before we got our podcast. So tip of the day, I really think needs to be, Don't be afraid to ask and reach out. You never know what's going to make it better. Right? If you think of the day, if you don't be afraid to open up, ask, reach out, and embrace whatever comes, because you can learn from it to make yourself better and the people around you better, because the more we are a byproduct of experience.
Agree.
I agree.
And in closing, twofold. The first question is going to be, why now? And I can start with Sandy. Why now NRB? Why now Women in Housing Real Estate Ecosystem? Why delegate spokeswomen? Why leverage your resources with NRB's resources?
If not now, when? 2020. If we're not going to do this now, when are we going to do it? We're not going backwards. Our world has definitely evolved, and it's changing. It's changing rapidly. It's changed. It's changed today. Now we're in May. The difference between January and May 2020, so all the changes that we've gone through, I would say now's the time for women to come and all together and help other women. I think a lot of times, you know, I kind of feel that sometimes women, we see one another more as of competition as opposed to building one another up and helping one another. And it's probably years out of, you know, centuries inbred in us that, you know, the survival of the fittest. I think it's our time to come together and build one another up and help one another, because there's the ability and there's the need for growth in all aspects, especially in government, which is going to be our next call, I'm sure, because of the stories I could tell you. Anyways, there really is a need for women to come together and make our voice heard in many aspects of government, and we're getting there, but we have a long way to go, baby. We really do.
Well, exactly. I think that the cool thing is that the core of information, right, with a gender lens, is why now, because there is no other organization or entity out there that's sharing the quality of life to make it a difference. So thank you for that, Sandy. I love it. Gay-Lynn.
Yes. So I can't say enough. I mean, the time is now. And I actually got super excited, not excited about what was going on, this crisis. It's just praying for those who definitely have suffered and have lost families and lives. I definitely respect that. But at the same time, and knowing once we gather that, the fact that, you know, we're here, we're sitting in our homes, can't be on this couch anymore. Get up, let's get going. As a coach and a mentor, I coach and mentor agents in commercial. And the first thing I thought of, let's get on, instead of getting just on another Zoom call, let's get on another working Zoom. I made it a point to that it really encouraged me. It helped me encourage others to get them off their couch. Yes. To do something productive. I think we feel better when we're productive, we're working towards a goal, we're helping others, we're encouraging others, and that excitement just got me going. And when we're removing that ego out of the way and we're helping others, and we're putting others in before us, and we just naturally starts making us all feel better. And that's just how it's kind of started for me. And it's just been going on, and knowing that I have that on my plate to get up for makes me get out of that bed in the morning and, you know, not go my commute of 15 seconds to my dining table.
No more couch potato, huh? No more bag of Haagen-Dazs ice cream and the bottle of vodka next.
Ready.
Laura's like, I'm ready. Let's do it. Hey, Laura, bring us home.
Well, I've belonged to NAWRB for many, many years, and I can say I've met some of the most phenomenal women in the industry. And if you think about it, I think it's 81% of homeowners are women, and we are an important factor. I remember years ago when I became one of the first real estate auctioneers in California, and I went to Missouri Auctions Conference, and I went through the door and the guy asked me, he said, all the wives and the secretaries go to the aquarium. So I went in, he grabbed me. He said, this is for auctioneers only. He said, lady, you're not an auctioneer. I am. And he said, all during the conference, it was, we sell pigs, we sell chickens, we sell whatever. And that lady thinks she's going to make a living doing real estate. I can say this as a woman-owned business and knowing all of you, Desiree has a wealth of people of knowledge. We need to share that. We need to be that resource. So many people need help. They don't know where to go. Been a mentor and a coach for many, many years. And I love what I do because I love to help people. And Desiree, I commend you for putting this together because the organization you have, there isn't another one like it. And I belong to the majority of them. You have, I can say, the most influential women I know, even outside of the world, belong to your organization. And you share well.
Oh, and absolutely kudos. If I just want to just interject one thing, Desiree, 10 years ago, we were part of the Great Recession. I think 2020 should be the great realization that it's time for change. I like
that.
So let that be our mantra. We are in the midst of the great realization that wake up, everybody. Wake up, women of our planet, men of our planet. Wake up to the world that we have to make some changes. If we want to survive on this planet, if we want to take care of ourselves, and I deeply believe in God as well. And if we really want to take care of the blessings that we've been given, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take care of one another. So this should be the great realization.
I love it.
Me too. I love that, Sandy.
Yes.
Very cool. So we did Gay-Lynn, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. We're all good. Hey.
We're all done.
All right, well, the reason is the great realization I loved because the conference is called Women's Equality in the New Century. Wow. Is what we figured out, right? And so the great realization, I love it because one of the things that we had themed it out was Symposium of Quality of Life Leadership with Gender Lens. We're all leaders. This is what we're doing. And I think and why was leverage resources and preserve and who any industry that touches land, the real estate ecosystem. And when you talk about the great realization, I love it. That's a great mix in this whole platform. There you go. All right, so thank you all. So how do we get a hold of you? We're gonna start with Gay-Lynn. How do we get a hold of you? If someone wanted to reach out to you and use your services and get to be part of you.
Well, I'll be glad to place my contact information there when we share, and you can reach me at my phone number directly. I can provide that information there, or gbarnes@barnescre.com, gbarnes or barnescregroup.com, but I'll provide my contact info.
Excellent. Sandy?
Really easy to get a hold of me. My cell phone number is 619-992-3389. Call, text, voicemail, you name it. Zoom calls. I'm getting the Zoom calls constantly. So yeah, whatever you need. And my offices, I have several offices I manage all here in San Diego. So we are available basically 24/7 these days.
Say it with attitude, okay? Laura.
Laura Dietz, you can always reach me direct. My direct cell phone number is 818-987-7422 or laura@lauradietz.net. And we're 24/7 because a lot of the clients we deal with are disaster and they need some help immediately. So I have 4 offices. We're there for you. You need us, just call.
Excellent, excellent. So again, thank you all for being on the podcast, for Know the Rules of the Game, for Turn the Dial. I'm your host, Desiree Patno. To get a hold and be part of NAWRB is nawrb.com, or you can reach us at 949-559-9800, or you can look at us up in LinkedIn under Desiree Patno. And thank you all for this incredible time. And as a resource to build this out, what we're looking for is to leverage all the expertise you hear here and take this across the nation to really build out to where you need something and ask or want, we're able to supply both to you and to us. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you take care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.